Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our video cast. This is the second one of our series where we're talking about Risk Management 360. You should go back and take a look at the first one where we define and really talk through what Risk Management 360 is. Today we have Lorenzo Chan here with us, who is a star in microinsurance. I met Lorenzo maybe 10 years ago. And I was really tremendously impressed. Here's somebody who had this idea, wanted to do microinsurance, was trying out some things. At that point, it was a church program, right, Lorenzo? Yeah. And has just really at every step learned and pushed and learned some more and pushed some more, and constantly now is coming up with really clever, interesting ways of serving low-income people with sachet insurance, microinsurance. And so, Lorenzo, maybe you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I have to say off the bat that insurance was not my first love. I don't know if it's anyone's first love. Essentially, I think my first passion is really away from insurance. This is really the arts, but I got into insurance by chance, by accident, like many people. And so I just decided that I'd be the best darn insurer I could be. And so my evolution there really came for traditional insurance. So I did the range. I was in property and casualty insurance. I did marine insurance, legal liability. Then I segued on to life and health and accident and all that. And all fine. And it allowed me to learn the ropes, and it also showed me the changes that really needed to be made if the insurance industry was to become more impactful and relevant to the people out there. And so, yeah, Michael mentioned meeting me in 2010, but shortly before that, probably 2007, about 3 years before that, we started our foray into doing something which at that time we called the sachet insurance. I really loved the term sachet because at that time I thought nothing captured it better. Insurance in affordable bite-sized chunks. And when we used it at that time, people thought it was a weird term. Today, it's entered the lexicon of the Philippine insurance terminologies, sachet insurance. And I think it has allowed us to truly bring insurance to a large segment of the market that really needs it, requires it. These are people who essentially are exposed to the same risks as the people who can afford, if not more risks. And these are also people who are often unaware of how they can minimize risk, manage their risk, or even transfer their risks. It's a big deal. And the fact that without our entry into it, we would never have known all the opportunities that are there. And so we embarked on our efforts at Sachet Insurance back in 2007, 2008. So this is our 13th year now, a 14th year of actually doing it and serving the market. Yeah, but still exciting. I still get very excited. But I have to tell you, around the time I met Michael those were the early years, and those were the years also of failures.
I remember, I was super impressed when I met you, and I've been going around at that point. I've been doing some kind of microinsurance for almost 15 years by the time I met you, and I've been going around and talking to insurers about how you have to understand clients. You have to talk to clients. You have to understand what they really need. You have to understand how to serve them, how to provide the tools of risk management that they need. And I was so impressed when unsolicited, you told me about how you went to Hong Kong, you went to Singapore, you actually did focus groups with the overseas workers, and you tried to understand what was really going on. And I thought, whoa, I don't have to make this argument myself. We don't have to debate about how you need client intervention, client information be able to develop your products. And so I was really impressed, and have been really ever since. And
Michael,
one of the things, yeah.
sorry, I just wanted to say that I thought that those early efforts did help us because look, people look at an insurance company and they think it's only for those people who can afford. So they think we come from they think we come from upper sector of the market that can afford. So they always feel that you don't understand us. You don't even know who we are and what we need. And that's true, Michael, that's true. And in those early days, we didn't. And we said that there's no way we can be successful. And in fact, I attribute the failure of our early efforts, the comic book and some other savings program, as that. I mean, we had these products which we thought were very affordable, $4, $3, and we thought that they seemed to address everything that people hated about insurance. No lapsation, quite simple, etc. And yet we were wrong. We were so wrong because we thought these were products that they would like, that they needed. But maybe in truth, we could have done better. And so the foray into Hong Kong, for instance, we gathered 15 domestic helpers. So these are people who were school teachers, professional degrees, but who couldn't earn enough for their families back in the Philippines. So they became domestic helpers in Hong Kong. So we gathered them in our office in Hong Kong over a Sunday. That's the only time they can go out freely. And then so we had cake and coffee and we were chatting. We said, so, going around the table and saying, how long have you been here, et cetera, et cetera. The longest serving, 15 years. And then the one who had a shortest stint at that time, 10 months. And I said, have any of you managed to save? No single hand was raised. I said, but you've been here 15 years. What have you been doing? She said, there never seems to be anything to save. I send money home regularly, and then there's always a requirement for additional funds. My father got sick. My son's going to graduate. My husband needs a new motor for the jeepney. My mom needs some funding for her stand of her stall in the wet market. There never seems to be enough to save. She says, so no, not been able to save. And so I thought that was alarming, that these people have been working very hard and fine. Some of it had gone to improvement of the house. Some of them had gone to, securing, maybe a vehicle for some business. But there was very little going into the coffers for savings, that will allow them, for that rainy day, for that moment when something happens. There was very little in that savings coffer. And so we so that was top of mind, what can we do, etc. So we kept that at the back of our minds as we proceeded to move forward. So
yeah, no, I was really impressed. And already then, some of the things that you were doing and we were already starting to work around were some of these things that now we're kind of codifying as RM 360 or risk management 360, right? We're not just looking at the insurance anymore. The insurance is a core component, but we're recognizing by talking to people is that really the issue is that, even if you've got the best insurance product you could ever get, you don't want your husband to die. You don't want your crops to die. You don't want your kid to be in the hospital, right? So what can we do to try to help people manage that risk? And at the same time, it helps the insurer to be able to recognize the reduced risk and theoretically, at least, reduce the premium and therefore get more clients, right? And so looking at some of this, so back then, you were doing the wellness work as well as the savings and then some insurance to back that up with Private Iris, which I still love.
Thank you.
It was full of very practical financial lessons. It's still the best financial education document that I've ever seen.
Well, thank you.
Very well done.
That is high praise coming from you. Thank you.
See, but that's the thing we're trying to look at more carefully is, how do we make sure that we can help people to not get to the point where they have to make a claim? And you've got in the Philippines, you've got typhoons and you've got lots of issues there. How can we help people to try to prepare better? We've had some discussions with people like Jerry Skis, who now has an index product, even for typhoons, that will pay in advance. I mean, not a lot in advance, but enough so that people can get out of there, so they can protect their home a little better. So how can we start to, work on this better? And so we're looking at a number of things, really always have, but are just taking a more focused approach with it now, looking at how can we help people to manage that. So we're looking in one of our projects with livestock, we're looking at how can we get access to a veterinarian much quicker than what normally happens, or how can we do it when it's cheaper? Because when you're talking about a cow, a milk cow, you can't bring the cow in. The veterinarian has to come out. There's a cost. So we're working on ways in which we can get access to the veterinarian. We're looking at how can we, with those same cattle, we're looking at how can we help to improve the feed that the milk cows are getting, and thus produce more milk and a better quality milk, so that then they're able to make more money and they're going to take care of their cows better. When we're looking at some other agriculture projects that we're on, we're looking at education and how do you bring education in, and in some of the other things, we're just trying to understand. When we're out there, we're talking to people about the risks they face. We always start with, what are the risks you face? How do you face those risks? What are your coping mechanisms? And then where are the gaps? And that's how we move into product development. But getting that information, we're also learning a lot about what causes these problems and how we can try to start addressing those in a way that that works much better to help actually reduce the overall risk that people are facing. Yeah.
Michael, funny you mentioned that, and agriculture, and that in fact was one of our learnings we had. I think the Philippine government had been encouraging companies to go into agricultural insurance, crop insurance, and there is a national company that does that, but it doesn't do very much, and so they've been pushing the private sector. There's really been very few takers apart from Pioneer, who's done that. And so one of the first instances we did was go to the market and ask your clients, go to the market, ask the prospects, ask the market. And so we did exactly as you mentioned, learn more about them. What risks are they exposed to? How do they manage it? And clearly, we're a rice eating nation and a maize eating nation. And so they say, rice, we plant maize. What's the biggest issue? Typhoon and flood. That's one of the major issues. And so, but do you have insurance? Of course. 9 out of 10 had no insurance. So how do you manage the risk? How do you manage the risk? They do manage the risk. They said, sir, we have this plot of land, this big, this big. We divide it into 3 chunks. And then we plant at different times. We first plant in this portion. We wait a couple of months, we plant in the middle portion, and then a couple of months in this portion. Why do you do that? Because each time a typhoon or a flood hits, the 3 plots of land will have crops in different stages of growth. So they will not always be wiped out in one go. So there was that already, that reduction of risk mechanism that they embarked on in their own terms, in their own mind, which, I believe was successful to a certain extent. The only problem now is that then you're not able to optimize the full capacity of your plot of land. So the yield, in a bad year, then you're only able to realize 1/3 or at best 2/3 rather than the full, than the full amount. And so that was such a learning for us that, hey, they are aware of risk. And then so then we segue on to, if there was some way, are you able to save? Of course they can't save. I mean, all these issues about farm to table. I think sometimes, when you talk to farmers, from farm to table, the concept of farm to table, I think you get the impression that it's the middlemen who make the most money.
Yep.
And so they said, nope, nope, sir, no savings, no savings. I mean, we plow it back, you know, it goes into grains, it goes into fertilizer, et cetera, et cetera. So, so would a risk transfer mechanism help, like insurance? Oh, we can't afford that. Then you start asking. So, you know, what are you looking at? What sort of exposure do you know, is at hand, and how much can you afford to set aside if you wanted to transfer the risk? So we thought that was quite useful and helpful. I think the client out there really possesses a great deal of information we all need if we are to serve them better.
You know, even looking at other products outside of agriculture, you know, we did the milk work, the microinsurance learning and knowledge project, and looking at, you know, is there real value? And this is really where we worked is, you know, looking at what are these risks you're facing. And so then we'd take a product that was common, and we'd look at people who were insured, people who were not insured, and what did you spend your money on? And where did you get the money from? And what are the coping mechanisms? And so we were able to very clearly differentiate all the different mechanisms that people use. And some of them are very painful, right? Some of them are, we sell productive assets.
Yeah.
But then it becomes very difficult to get going again. Some of them are innocuous, right? You know, I take a little bit of income out of my pocket and I use that. And so understanding those also gives us a chance to kind of focus in on where are ways that we can help them. One of the most interesting things we found in the Philippines was that one of the substantial coping mechanisms for funerals was actually gambling. And I talked to the researchers and I said, no way, it can't be gambling. And then I was walking in the streets of Manila one night, and there was a funeral, and there were people gambling, and some of the profits go back to the family. But see, there's all these mechanisms that people are using, all these ways of trying to manage after the event, the kind of ex post kinds of responses. And so the ex ante, the before the event, the preparation, those are things, you know, that we're looking at.
The Philippines, about 5-6 years ago, we noticed there was a propensity for dengue fever, especially in the rainy season. And it was something that was quite prevalent. And so we said, we must do something for it. And then we said, oh, but people don't think there is such thing as dengue insurance. We said, then we've established relevance. And so when we did that, we said, let's simplify it. Pay $7 a year, $7, and you get paid $200 upon diagnosis. And all we need is just a medical certification and a lab test. And we don't even have to see you sometimes. We can do it all via Viber, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. And if you can't come in and see us, then we can wire the money to you. And because you're in the province, you don't have access to a bank, then we will certainly wire through a remittance agency, a pawn shop. So we've now allowed ourselves to relate to this market through the various institutions they are familiar with, to the various institutions that they have certain trust in. So that helps earn credibility. And in fact, when we were promoting it initially, Michael, we were saying, how do you establish relevance? Insurance is so intangible. So we said, what is tangible? Skincare products. And so we found a skincare company that uses a lot of organic products called Human Nature. And we approached them. We says, one of your best sellers is an insect repellent. Are you willing to do a partnership of sorts? You know, and they said, yeah, why not? So at that time, we had developed Medicash dengue insurance and Medicash leptospirosis. Leptospirosis sounds very technical, but guys, it's very simple. When you wade through flood waters and you have an open wound of some sort, and all sorts of dirt, you know, rats, urine, et cetera, get into your system, it could potentially infect you. And at its height, leptospirosis could make you hallucinate, you know, before death. So it is in fact a serious disease. And so we launched those two products, and there was a season we said, if you bought a dengue product and a leptospirosis product, you get a free insect repellent from Human Nature. At the same time, if you walk into a Human Nature store and you bought, I think, 4 small bottles of insect repellent of Human Nature, they will give you a free Medicash dengue insurance. So it's a cross promotion. So we're each promoting each other and each really complementing each other, Michael. For us, we're saying we don't, it's not that we don't want you to claim, but getting dengue fever is not a walk in the park. So we'd rather you take safety measures, preventive measures, by using a bit of this repellent. Hey, great, it mitigates our claims, but it also saves you all the hassle.
Right.
To the Human Nature people, they're saying, so you may use a lot of repellent, but sometimes it's not enough. And so for those extra moments when there's still a little portion that's not covered by the repellent, that a mosquito then bites and you get it, there's insurance that can come in and help you. So this is sort of our way of establishing relevance. Everyone is exposed to risks in the world, no matter what sort of socioeconomic class you come from. We are all exposed to risks of different sorts. Some of us can afford to take on it ourselves, others cannot. The sector, Michael, that you and I are active with, the low-income sector, the inclusive sector, are people who still are not in that state of readiness to take on all the risks themselves, which is why it's very vital that we start helping them piece together that blanket, that risk management blanket that they have. Some are we help them retain the risk, reduce the risk. But for me, a very important step is to immediately transfer some of the risk so that each time they suffer some of this item, some of these calamities, they don't get set back to zero again. It really just helps them out. And how do you do that? By understanding the client, by asking them the questions, by listening to them, and then telling ourselves how do we then work to provide answers to those needs within the realm and confines of the world of insurance. A lot of people say they want to insure more people. A lot of people say they want to do microinsurance, but they don't go beyond credit life. They don't go beyond accident. But there are other risks in the world today.
Great wisdom, Lorenzo. And, I thank you not just for this bit of time and for sharing the stories and the information and the experiences that you've had, but I sincerely thank you for the 13 years of struggling in microinsurance, sachet insurance, learning the lessons, listening to clients, responding to the needs of clients with not just the insurance, but with the other components too.